Here we go. You got your engines ready? You ready to go? All right. So it's happening. They're finally wrapping up CBA talks, and it looks like we're going to see this announced tomorrow. Return to play. If a player is going to opt out of returning to play hockey this summer, they must let their team know by 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday, which is 2 p.m. Pacific. So at that point, if you don't want to play, you'll just let your team know, and you're good. You don't get a share of the playoff revenues, but you're opting out. Okay. Now, this is where things get kind of interesting. Now, 30 skaters, unlimited goaltenders, we knew this was going to be the case, where it's going to be expanded rosters, right? So 30 skaters, unlimited goalies, and the teams will submit the players list of who's going to play to the NHL by July 9th. So I'm thinking July 10th, which is 5 days from now, we'll be able to start doing previews for the play-in rounds, and we can start actually getting into who's going to play, who's not going to play, and all of that wonderful stuff. So if you're going to decide not to play, there you go. But there's definitely a but here. You must pass a physical. So they're going to have this pre-play physical that's going to happen, where a doctor may take a look and may say, you know what, this guy's got high blood pressure. This player has an underlying condition that could make him more vulnerable to getting ill, getting really, really sick if there's some form of an outbreak. And they can say this player is ineligible to play. That player can then get a second opinion to try to overrule that first opinion. But I have to say, that's news, and I think that's interesting, where a doctor can say, yeah, this guy isn't eligible to play. And honestly, good. That's something that makes me feel a little bit better about what the NHL's doing here. So testing will be done 48 hours prior to a return to the practice facilities. Now, not all tests come back very quickly. So if a player's test results haven't come back yet, they will not rejoin the team. They will not be allowed in the practice facility until that test comes back negative. And then they will be tested every day after that. So it'll be rigorous testing, daily testing, everybody getting tested. And the other interesting thing I saw in this was, and again, I'm taking notes from Bob McKenzie and from Elliot Friedman, throwing them together. Chris Johnston reporting what Elliot Friedman's been hearing. And apparently one social media member per team will be in the bubble. It sounds like it's required. So you got to think it's going to be, people on Twitter who are going to be in the bubble. Makes some sense. So your social media member can be down at ice level taking pictures of the players and all that. And yeah, any positive test will deem a player unfit to play. No leaks to the media. So I've already seen somebody say, and I was going to say it, but they said it first, which was, this is the Steve Simmons rule. There will be no discussion of who gets a positive test and who doesn't. I totally understand this. And I understand there are other leagues that are disclosing who does or doesn't test positive. The NHL saying no. And I think it's more of a panic thing than anything else. They're like, no, we're just going to, players just going to be out due to injury. And we'll leave it at that. Another thing, too, is, so let's just say we've been talking about this the last few days, about players who maybe aren't taking this quite as seriously as others. Maybe they're out partying, and they're not doing anything illegal. There's nothing illegal about what they're doing. Is it reckless? We can have that discussion. And the NHL's discussion is among this, or is like this. If a player's caught leaving the bubble, being outside the hub, and it's without permission, and basically they're breaking that bubble, they can be removed. The NHL can say, you know what, you're gone. And not only that, but they can circle back on the team that's involved and fine the team, or depending on the circumstance, it may go as high as them losing draft picks. So the NHL is very serious about, if we have this bubble in place, you have to do as you're told. You have to be exactly where you're supposed to be. If you're not, you could be out of here. You could be compromising what we're putting together here. Bonus money. So the bonus money is going to be $32 million altogether. $20,000 will be split amongst players of the team that loses the play-in. So if a team loses the play-in, you got to think with 30 players and some goalies, it's a little under $1,000 each. The Stanley Cup winners, $240,000. $240,000 split between the team. So is it a good amount of money? Hey, for us, that'd be fantastic, wouldn't it? I have to say that's something I go, you know what? I don't mind that for a cup. But for the team losing the play-in, maybe playing 5 games, $1,000, I'm saying like $1,000 per player. By their standards, not a whole lot of money. 240 grand, again by their standards, depending on the player, it may not be a lot of money, and it might be. The new collective bargaining agreement, which is just, getting all the ink dried on it, 2026 is when that will expire. So that would give us 6 years before we have to talk about another collective bargaining agreement, and thank God for that. Plus, if the economy doesn't recover and the NHL doesn't recover, it can be extended to 2027. This collective bargaining agreement is basically, it's a Band-Aid. It's an extension to kick the can down the road until we've got better economics so they can really talk about how to fix everything. I've already talked about how the escrow is going to work, 20% for this coming season, and then it's going to be between 14 and 16 after that, and then it drops to 6 for the last 3 years of the agreement. So odds are Artemi Panarin won't be happy with this deal because next year's escrow would be 20%. The final check for 2019-2020, which has been sitting out there since March. This has been sitting out there for 3.5 months, waiting to see what they're going to do with that final paycheck. And while we may think, well, it's just the final paycheck, it equals about $140 million US between every player in the league. They're putting that back to the owners. They're giving it back to the owners so they owe less money. So whatever money the NHL is short of being able to fulfill its salary cap of $81.5 million, whatever amount of money the league doesn't generate in revenues, that's money that the NHLPA owes the owners. And that's part of the reason why they'd have to bump that CBA to 2027 would be they haven't paid the owners back yet. So until the owners get paid, you can't, go into a brand new collective bargaining agreement. They can't have that hanging over their heads. Salary variable in contracts. We've seen some front-loaded contracts. And there was discussion of whether or not they were going to change the signing bonus system. A signing bonus system that fans of teams that can't afford to pay those signing bonuses really don't like. They have not changed the signing bonus system. So that's not going to change over the next 6 years. If you don't like that signing bonuses are a way to get around the cap, there's still a way to get around the cap. But the variation between the years of the contract have been changed. So the way it is now, you can front load a contract. You can give a guy a huge signing bonus, and the front end of the contract can be worth $15 million, the back end of the contract can be worth $8 million, and your cap hit comes down. That's done. Now, instead of a variable of 50% that you can have in a contract between the top number and the low number, now it's going to be 35%. So that's going to really even that out and really balance things out. And they've closed another loophole that was there for a long time. So back in 2013, the Calgary Flames foolishly gave an offer sheet to Ryan O'Reilly. The Colorado Avalanche matched it. Here's the thing. If they hadn't matched it, because Ryan O'Reilly had played in Europe that year, he would have had to clear waivers before he came over and played for the Calgary Flames. Looking even further back than that, Glenn Anderson. Glenn Anderson signed a contract to come over and play with the Vancouver Canucks, but he had played in Europe, so he had to clear waivers. And on waivers, I believe it was St. Louis that picked him up, and then he ended up. Was it St. Louis or was it Edmonton picked him up and traded him to St. Louis? Either way, Vancouver had to put him on waivers, so they signed him to the contract. He wants to come over and play for Vancouver, and instead he had to go play somewhere else because of waivers. I thought it was a dumb rule at the time. I am amazed it has taken this long for the NHL to take something that ridiculous and take it out of there. If I'm playing in Europe, it doesn't matter if I've already played in the NHL. I should be able to say I'm going to go and play in Anaheim. I'm going to go and play in San Jose. I'm going to play in Florida. I'm going to play in Winnipeg. Wherever I decide I'm going to play, there shouldn't be re-entry waivers. That shouldn't be a thing. And so they've closed those up. Other than that, really things don't change a whole lot. No trade clauses have changed in the terms that if you traded a player, PK Subban being an example, had a no trade clause. He drops that for the trade. The team acquiring him, Nashville, said, yeah, we like the player. We're going to drop that no trade clause. We're not going to honor it. That's no longer a thing. If a player has a no trade clause and they are moved to a new team, that no trade clause still exists. That team now has to ask permission before being able to trade that player. So, no trade clauses. I know there's people who don't like them. I don't mind them because to me it's just a player, usually a veteran player, saying, I want to have some say in where I go. Not necessarily I'm going to be here for the next 8 years. You guys can just, bite me if you think you're going to trade me. It's a matter of they want to say in where they go. So a team has to approach them and say, all right, so we want to drop the no trade. And then the player has to say, hey, where? And if they say, well, we're thinking Detroit, he can say yes or no. We're thinking LA, he can say yes or no. And again, it gives them that control. We may see more contracts that have the no trade clause with the exception. So he has a no trade clause, but he has to submit 6 teams he won't go to. He has to submit 10 teams he will go to. This kind of thing, we may see more of that. And that's basically the gist of it. It looks like we're all set to go. Training camp is supposed to open on July 13th, which is a week from tomorrow. And in between now and then, like I said, I'll be able to start doing actual previews once we know who's going to play and who isn't. And again, most players likely will. I'll be interested to see once the physicals come out, which players might be dubbed as not being eligible to return. And an example would be, for instance, Jay Bouwmeester with St. Louis. There's no way he'd pass the physical. There's no way a doctor right now would say, oh, absolutely, Jay Bouwmeester, go and play. And I'm not saying that he would or that he can. I'm just using that as an obvious example where a doctor would say, yeah, he's a highly vulnerable individual. He can't be playing. But it'll be interesting because in the matter of the NHL not wanting leaks about players being unfit to play for testing positive, are they going to tell us why a player may not be able to play? Let's say Wayne Simmons. They test him. And again, I know he's not playing. That's why I'm using him as an example. Wayne Simmons goes in and gets tested, and the doctor says, hey, he's got high blood pressure. He can't be out there. And this is where, too, fans are going to get pretty mad if certain big-name players are suddenly deemed unable to play because of physical activity that might be harmful to them. And a doctor saying you have underlying conditions, you might be in great shape, I can't greenlight you playing. Things are going to get interesting. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. If you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video, and hey, it looks like things are pretty much done. It's just a matter of ratifying it now. And we will see what happens August 1st. August 1st is when we should have hockey back. And hey, thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. And do hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through, you just happened upon this video, because I will likely have a lot to talk about this coming, I'll say, 2 weeks. Thanks again for everything. I'll talk to you again soon.